everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's Empowered Chat on CFO Outsourcing with Manufacturing. I am joined by two of our CFO consultants, Jerry Benjamin and Melissa Rood. Now, let's hop in real quick to these questions.
Sure.
Jerry, I'm going to start off with you.
Okay.
Why is it so important to have a solid strategy when it comes to setting your financial goals?
No, I appreciate the question. When we look at especially a manufacturer and the environment in which we're operating and the competing interests and the impacts that we have, whether they're from competition, whether it's local competition or overseas, inflation, manpower, all these things are really driving and influencing the business. And so, it's like that cliche which says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so really what the strategy is we're trying to define that destination. We want to see what is our objective. And again, the window can vary. It might be a 1 to 2 year window. It might be a 3 to 5 year window, depending on what specific area and goals you're focusing on. And as I look at that, again, it typically will involve multiple steps. So we're laying out a plan. It sounds impressive to say a strategy, but we're really laying out a plan. And for example, it may be that we want to move into a new market. It may be that we're going to expand our line, a manufacturing line extensively. And so we're looking at significant capital investment. We're looking at the return on that investment. We're also looking at the time frame. So in each of these cases with a strategy, it's important that we lay out the destination. It's important that we identify the steps that we have to do to get there, the steps, what we have to achieve, what we have to accomplish. And then it's important that we understand the investment. If I'm going to do these things, take these actions or steps, and then to be successful, what investment do I need in terms of manpower, in terms of capital, in terms of systems? And then that plan also will come back and lay out, is there a sufficient return? And that'll really go into what Melissa's going to touch on. Is there a sufficient return for the risk involved? Is the reward worth the risk?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, a business without a plan, like Jerry said, has no direction. So, your ownership group, your management team, your employees have to understand every single day when they're making decisions, why are they making those decisions? And if there's no strategies, there's no goals, employees don't know, which decision or which path they should take on a daily basis. So having that clear-cut strategy from the top down certainly gives, all of your employees, makes all of their jobs much easier.
Yeah. Are we going to drive and influence, or are we going to be driven and influenced?
Definitely a good comment. You don't want to be a drifting company.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Now, Melissa, financial modeling comes up a lot, and I know that can be really complex. Are you able to break that down and really simplify it for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think, financial modeling, I guess, kind of just, let's just talk about what types of financial modeling first. So there's kind of a few different things when you think of financial modeling. Are you talking about just a budget or a forecast of your financials? Are you talking about, cash flow or, cash forecasting? Are you talking about your liquidity for the company? As Jerry mentioned, are you talking about, an investment on a capital, right? Do you need to understand what the return on that investment will be before you make the investment? So there's kind of several different models. I think kind of the key things for a business, if you're just getting started in modeling, is, just start simple. You don't have to make a model complex. Yes, if you've been doing this for a while and you've got, a very detailed strategy, sure, you can get complex, but just start with what's your basic goals and design a model that helps you achieve those goals. Like Jerry said, if your goal is growth, well, then you're certainly going to want to make sure you do some type of forecasting goal that gives a 1, 3, and 5 year sales goal and how you're going to get there, right? So just start with just key metrics, key items, and make sure you include those in the model. You can always, put items in a model, monitor it on a consistent basis, and make changes to it. Just because you make a model in, October, November timeframe for next year's budget doesn't mean that you can't change that model in February or March or again in July, right? As assumptions change, as the market changes or your business changes, or maybe your strategy changes, you're constantly going to be making changes or adding different things to that model. So just start small and then build as you go through the process. And I think another good thing is, kind of just start with what you know. If you don't understand everything in a model, maybe you don't understand a cash flow, but you understand that you have, $1,000 a week coming in and you need to disperse $800 a week. Just start monitoring those things. And then you can get into, bigger things like, how do I, forecast out beyond what my receivables are? Like, I want to know what my potential cash flow will be 6 months down the road, but I only have sales in the system for 90 days. So, right. So you can start making assumptions on other things, but just start with what you know. Just keep it super, super simple, lower level, and get yourself started and then build from there.
Yeah, I think Melissa's really hit, I'll keep the cliches going. She hit the nail on the head in terms of it's so easy to fall into the trap of complexity and trying to develop the perfect model that takes into account all the variables and the permutations. And again, I think what Melissa hit on was start with what you know. For most companies, or for many companies, certainly the ones that I've been involved with, there are going to be a handful, maybe 10 to 12 key factors that are going to drive the majority of the outcome. So can we hone in on those? What do we know about those key factors? And how best can we project those? And again, we can flex, as Melissa talked about, in terms of flexing for growth as an example, but stick with those known components. Keep the process simple. Don't go for complex out of the gate. And again, it's iterative. So one of the benefits of that financial modeling is you're going to continue to develop your processes and your assumptions, and that will allow you to continue to make a more and more robust model.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens pretty frequently that companies get frustrated because they don't, they make a model too complex. And so it's, too much work for them to update, or they get frustrated because they don't understand. So they just, stop using it altogether. And I think that's definitely something you want to avoid, right? If you have a model, use the model and, get the model to the point where it's giving you good data, right? And then you can keep adding different components to it, right? So don't get yourself frustrated. Keep it simple.
Great. Okay. So I have my strategy in place. I've set my goals. I know what financial modeling my company will be using. Now, how do I get my associates trained and able to actually execute it?
Yeah. I mean, that is the next piece, right? We've developed a strategy. We've developed a process to model that strategy, the outcomes that we think we can achieve, and the investment we need. Now it's really down to that execution piece that you're talking about, Christina. And I guess, first of all, we didn't talk about this in the strategy, but a strategic plan is not an accounting exercise or a finance team exercise. It involves all of the disciplines of an organization, from the sales team, manufacturing, human resources, administration. All of these functions have to come together to build that strategy, to have their input, their specific knowledge and expertise in that strategy. So assuming we've got a strategy that's been established and created with that involvement, with the appropriate level of involvement, now it's a matter of communicating to not only the people that participated, but all of the members that will have influence on the strategy. So again, what we're going to want to be able to do is communicate the strategy, and then we really need to define the milestones. So for example, you may know the strategy, Christina, You may agree with the strategy, you're excited, you're on board, you're engaged, but you have no idea the role you play in it. And so that communication and involvement is critical. The key members of the organization need to have buy-in. They need to understand the strategy, why it makes sense, and then how they influence it and how they have impact. And from there, then it has to become kind of a living, breathing document. We need to establish defined milestones, because again, as we started out, we may be looking at a 1 to 2 year time frame, we may be looking at a 3 to 5 year time frame. And again, that's something that, if we're not careful, ends up on a shelf above someone's desk. So we need to establish those milestones, have the measurements, and communicate that so that we can track how well we're performing. And as Melissa said, in the modeling, circumstances will change over a time continuum. If you're looking at a budget of 12 months, there's still a lot of variability. As we look out 3 to 5 years, the changes could be substantial. So we need to measure where we are. We need to, and compare that to the plan, but we also need to evaluate the environment we're operating in. And does that require changes? Are there opportunities to accelerate the plan, the tactics that would be years 3 and 4 based on the environment today? Or conversely, do we need to push that off? So again, it's just a live interaction, monitoring our progress. And again, making sure, I think critical is making sure everyone understands how the role they play within the achievement of that plan.
Yep, I agree. I think one of the key takeaways that I received in my career from a fantastic CEO that I worked for is there's one name in the box. So when you set a goal or a target, there's one person that's responsible for that. If you have 5 or 6 people that are responsible for it, I guarantee it'll never get done. So there's one person who's responsible. That doesn't mean that person does it by themselves. It just means they're kind of that key leader for it, right? So they're getting a team or a committee and, establishing all the action items that need to happen to achieve the target. So, right, that monitoring, constant communication, and, having those specific measurable goals that, one person is responsible for achieving. And, you put 5 or 6 up on the board, and when you achieve 2 or 3, you remove those and you add a couple more. So you might have 20 goals or objectives, but you're only looking at 3 to 5 that you're working on, in any specific time frame. So anything more than that, and your employees get overwhelmed, unmotivated. So you just want to keep that target to a small. As you achieve them, take them off the board and move on.
Thank you both. This has been very insightful. Before we wrap up today, is there any last final thoughts that you guys want to share with our audience?
Yeah, thank you. I think it is important, if you haven't taken the time to look at a strategy, to develop that strategy, to develop and to enhance it with the models, to evaluate that the strategy makes sense, at least financially, and then from executing that strategy, I strongly encourage you to do that. And again, Melissa, really, you don't have to set a 25-year strategy, taking your business, your manufacturing company, from 10 million to 150 million or 250 million. Start with where you are and set those targets that you want to achieve. And again, you may build a strategy that is 6 to 12 months in length. And there's really a discipline that we benefit by doing that. And it's a learning process. It will be iterative, and you'll be surprised at how you and your team will grow as you move down that continuum.
Yeah, I think putting a strategy in place for any business is super important. I think the only mistake you can make during this whole process is to just not start, to not put one together at all. So start somewhere, even if it's just, a few minor goals or a small model, just start, because it really will give you, that path, that clear path to help you make good business decisions.
Wow. Thank you both for joining us today. You provided great thoughts and very insightful points. And thank you for for watching this Empowered Chat today. We will see you at the next one. Thank you all.